Good evening and welcome. My name is Stan Lemons. I'm president of thesecrettowriting.com, and I'm thrilled to have you all join us this evening. We're in for a real exciting and informative presentation this evening. I'm so thrilled to have our guest speaker from Prairie View University, Dr. Joy D. Thomas. Today's topic is called How College Financial Aid Works. Guidance from the people who make it happen. And certainly we have an expert here with us today who will tell us all the ins and outs of the process. So like all of our Expanding College Opportunity Speaker Series events, and like me, my style is I like to make them relaxed, enjoyable, and hopefully packed full of information. So one bit of housekeeping, you can submit questions via the chat. I will check the chat periodically during our time together, and we will be together for approximately 1 hour, actually 1 hour exactly. So with that being said, let me just, what I'd like to do is turn the mic over to our special guest, Dr. Thomas, have her introduce herself, and then what I want to do, then I'll flip it back to me. I'm going to give a lightning speed overview of college financing, just because I wanted people come to this topic with a wide variety of backgrounds. So I want to just share some basic information, and then Dr. Thomas will take over for the duration of our program. With that being said, again, welcome, Dr. Thomas. Can you please take a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, tell us who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Again, I am Joy Thomas, and I'm okay to call me Joy. I am currently the Director of Student Financial Aid at Prairie View A&M University in Prairie View, Texas. I have been in financial aid for a little over 18 years in various capacities. I started out, as a work-study student working in the financial aid office, and I kind of excelled my way. I'm originally from Georgia, so I started my career at Savannah State University in Savannah, Georgia. If you know anything about Georgia, Savannah is a beautiful city, and so it pained me to leave Savannah to come to Texas, but I did come here for a great opportunity. I've been able to expand my role within financial aid, and not only financial aid, but in other areas within higher education. My passion is specifically in historically Black colleges, so I do have a lot of knowledge when it comes to the various populations and the various situations and circumstances that occur at HBCUs. Just an FYI. So it's a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to be able to assist you through this process. I'm not 100% sure of everyone's background, but I'm sure that you all are aspiring or maybe even current college students. But whatever questions you have, I am here to answer those questions for you and give you as much information as possible to guide you through the financial aid process. So thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. And yes, I know Savannah quite well, and it is a beautiful place. And so I get it. I understand the tug of war, so to speak, to come from Texas. But you are here, and we are so happy you are. That being said, let me flip over. I'm going to come back to me. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully everyone can see my PowerPoint. Now, this information that this quick overview really comes from the book Expanding College Opportunity, and there's a student workbook. And by the way, these are available on the secrettowriting.com website. Oh, I'm at the end of my presentation. Let me flip back here. All right. So in terms of paying for college, I always think about this topic from a starting point of really saying to students that you should pursue the opportunity and don't let the cost of a college stop you from applying. And I say that because a lot of times people may hear about the cost of a school. Some schools are $10,000, $50,000, $70,000. I mean, the price of college or higher ed in general is really all over the map, and it can be quite expensive. And sometimes that can be a deterrent for students to apply to college. But depending on your circumstance, where you choose to apply, you might find that it can be less expensive or less costly for you to attend a school than you might imagine, certainly than what might be presented on a school's website. In other words, the sticker price, as it's commonly referred. So when I think about financing a college, I have described it in, of course, I put it in my own terms. Stan's financial aid equation, right? Now this is higher math, but go with me. 3 minus 2 equals 1, right? Higher math. What does that really mean? Let's take a look at it from the standpoint of financial aid. So I have 3 boxes here, 3, 2, 1, right? Box number 3 has tuition or sticker price and cost of attendance. Box number 2, expected family contribution. And box number 1 equals or refers to demonstrated financial need. So again, keeping with my higher math equation of 3 minus 2 equals 1, if I go here and I look at box number 3, I think about this in terms of if you look at a school's website, and you might see the cost of tuition. Sometimes it's referred to as a sticker price. So that's sort of your first look at the equation, the sticker price. But then along with that, there are other costs, which are commonly referred to when you put the sticker price plus other costs to attend the school. That's commonly referred to the cost of attendance. And that number might include tuition, it might include travel to a school, books, all those sort of, your students might like pizza on Friday nights or Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights, right? That's typically sort of part of your today's college student experience. Well, all of that is a cost. So if you take that cost and then you subtract, right? Box 3 minus 2, and box 2 is referring to the amount that you are expected to pay. And of course, this is based on the assumption, and financial aid is based on the assumption that the primary responsibility of paying is on the part of the family. But there are means of getting aid. But in terms of how much you're expected to pay, that is determined and calculated based largely off of the FAFSA, right? And this is a free form that people fill out each year, and it is from the federal government, and it is a tool that's used to give a number as it relates to how much your family would be expected to pay, and that's based off of income, largely off of income. There are other factors, but that is income, family size are key drivers. Some schools might even ask you to complete what's called the CSS profile. That's a handful of schools, maybe about 300 or so schools that will ask you to use that form. And that form asks for a bit more information. But in general, for sure, in terms of being considered for financial aid, you would need to complete the FAFSA. Now, of course, you complete the FAFSA, and then you receive sort of an estimated family contribution, and that number is used by each individual college to then look at kind of their situation, the college situation, and what they can offer. And ultimately, it's the college that makes that final decision as to what would be expected to pay. And by the way, if I misspeak in any way, I have the expert here that's going to help me out and clarify anything. But I think I'm doing all right so far. So if you have box number 3 minus box number 2, right? You have your cost of attendance minus the amount of money that you would be expected to pay. Then you get to box number 1. Like if there's an amount where there's a gap. In other words, there's a demonstrated financial need where you might need money to be able to fulfill that total amount that's actually required to attend the school. So then you say, well, how is that need filled? Well, that need might be filled in several ways, through grants, and these grants might come from a college or might come from the state, through scholarships, and then through work study programs where your student is at college and your student may have a job in the library or in the student center or whatever position. And then finally, loans. Now, of course, most people want to have more grants as opposed to loans because you don't have to pay back grants or scholarships. So that's really how, if you think in terms of this simple equation, this is really how the different pieces kind of interrelate. One bit of advice that I often give to parents and students is that when you are getting ready to apply to college, is to apply to a basket of schools in terms of the selectivity, in other words, how difficult it is to be admitted, but also in terms of the finances. And when I say in terms of the finances, I'm talking about that. You remember that box number 1, that cost of attendance? So you can apply to a school that may advertise a cost of attendance of $60,000 or $70,000, but it's okay to also apply. Maybe you consider applying to a school where it's $20,000. So you kind of have a range of schools that you might look at. And it's kind of like following that principle of diversification, of having options. Ultimately, when you're applying to college and you're considering the expense and rather the investment that you're making in your education, you want to be a smart consumer. So ask questions, right? When I go shopping, I ask questions. I want to know what's going on. If I don't understand something, I ask. And so I encourage you to do the same. Now, the FAFSA form, as I mentioned before, which refers to, and I didn't mention this before, it refers to the free application for federal student aid. It is free. You fill it out, and I encourage everyone to fill it out, this regardless of your financial situation. I mean, if you're like rolling in dough, which in my case, when I applied to college, that was not the case. I applied, but even families, in all seriousness, that feel like they don't have enough resources for college, or families that do feel like they have tons of money, and they may say to themselves, well, I'll never get aid. Well, I still encourage you to apply for, fill out the FAFSA, because circumstances change and you never know until you fill out this form. So this is really your gateway. Pay attention to deadlines, because schools, they have resources that, they have money available for students. In terms of, when I go back to that, how might that need be filled? Schools have sort of a pot of money and they have deadlines. So you need to really adhere to those deadlines, because, money runs out. Or, we all have budgets, schools have budgets. So you want to pay attention to deadlines. As I started off saying, do not be intimidated by the cost of a private college, because sometimes some schools may have the resources to offer you a substantial aid package. And so it really just depends on the school. And then it never helps you to basically to worry about what someone else's financial package is. And, some people may say, well, that school didn't offer me any money. So then you may say, well, I don't want to apply to that school. Well, don't do that, because everybody's situation is different. So it's really important to communicate with people like Dr. Thomas, and she gave me permission to call her Joy, so I'm going to do that. So, you know, financial aid people are really nice people, I've found, and so they welcome your asking questions and reaching out to them. Okay. To my point, don't be afraid to communicate with your financial aid officer. So again, that's my quick overview. I'm going to turn it back over to Joy and let her really clarify. And then many of you were kind enough to send in questions. I wrote some of those down. Again, you can type in questions in the chat. I will take those. If you do, again, want the book and workbook, that is available for purchase on the secrettowriting.com website. And with that said, I'm going to flip it back to Joy. Let's see. Okay. So how did I do?
And look, I think, you sure you don't have a background in financial aid? Because you summed it up perfectly. Everything that you described was so on point. So, you know, I don't need to do anything else. No, I'm joking. No, but all the information that you provided was 100% accurate. I like the way you went into the description about the EFC, how it plays a role into your cost of attendance and your unmet need. Completing the FAFSA application. So you did summarize everything pretty well. So I guess we can dive into questions at this point, whenever you're ready.
Okay, sure. You know, one thing that we have families that have students that are in middle school, some are in high school, some are actually families with current seniors who are literally applying right now. But just to kind of level set, I've always sort of wanted to have a situation where I'm talking to someone like you that could advise. Let's imagine you're talking to a family of that has an elementary school student. And then, you know, that student, of course, would go through middle school and high school. Can you walk us through and offer some tips, some advice for families as they progress from elementary to high school, and some of the key things that they would want to do along the way? This is kind of a big macro kind of question, but to the extent that you can offer some tips along that journey, that would be beneficial.
Sure, sure. So, you know, thinking in terms of it being, you know, too early, most people think that, okay, you're not really interested in even learning anything about college, period, until you're actually in high school and you're ready to make that next step to start looking into schools, and then you start obtaining that information. However, it's very important that, you know, starting even at the elementary level, as you mentioned, that you start doing your research. Start doing your research not only on the schools that you want to attend, but different scholarship opportunities that are out there. I've seen where students, they make a commitment, and sometimes that commitment starts early as middle school, being that, you know, if you commit to certain programs, to certain organizations, being a part of certain organizations at that point in time, they will guarantee to pay for your college degree, will pay to support you in college. So start doing your research early. I would advise a parent, again, at the elementary level, that start doing your research. Look out for those scholarship opportunities that are out there. You know, start early as far as learning more about the financial aid and scholarship process, because I guarantee you by the time you are a junior in high school and you're ready to take that leap to start, you know, getting that information to determine which colleges you wanted to attend, getting the funding is especially something very important, because, you know, you don't want to wait until you're a junior and then you find out that mom and dad hadn't saved enough money to support you to go to the college that you want to go to. So even start looking, although it will more than likely change from by the time you're in elementary school, I'm pretty sure tuition costs will have slightly increased by the time that you're actually ready to attend. But it's still important to kind of get an idea as to the cost to attend the various schools of your choice, so that you will not, you know, end up in junior, senior year trying to, you know, scuffle up and find money to be able to afford to attend your dream college. So again, it's very important to start early, doing the research, applying for scholarships, because there are scholarships out there that you can apply for as early as 8th or 9th grade. and they will commit to providing you with those scholarships by the time that you have made the decision of the college that you wish to attend. So the key to it is start early, start your research very early.
So you mentioned, that's very helpful. You mentioned scholarships, and I tell you, about half of the people on this that signed up for the webinar, they're asking for scholarships. Where do I get scholarships? How do I get them? And so on and so on and so on. Can you please shed some light on types of scholarships and how do people access? Where do you go to apply for scholarships?
So there's a lot of resources out there. Of course, you have different types of scholarships. So your talent-based scholarships, that's going to be, those individuals who are great at football, baseball, basketball, are either in the band, some kind of special talent. So as you are in high school, if it's your, dream to go to a college and play football, or go to college and play basketball, or go to college to even be a cheerleader or in the band, start early, again, with the school of your choice to determine what that entails of. Make sure that you're meeting with, if you're an athlete, meet with those coaches. If you're a part of the band or a cheerleader, meeting with those cheerleading coaches or the band director to see what kind of scholarship opportunities they have available. Because I guarantee you, they do have scholarships, and they're always seeking new talent every year. I would just give an example at Prairie View. Of course, every year we have a large number of athletes that obtain full ride scholarships. So if that's one of your passions, to play a sport or participate in an extracurricular such as band or cheerleading, definitely make sure you start your research early with that. Also, you have your merit-based scholarships. Those are scholarships that are based solely on merit, which your GPA plays a big role into those scholarships. So, don't wait until junior and senior year to determine, like, oh, okay, well, now I need to get a 4.0 so I can try to get a full ride scholarship to college. You want to start that process early. And also your school of choice. Each school is different. Each school has their own merit standards when it comes to awarding scholarships. So whatever school you decide, make sure you're starting the research to determine whether the GPA, the minimum GPA eligibility requirements, what else is required in order to be able to obtain a scholarship at those schools. And then you have your external scholarships. So those are those scholarships that are funded to you by organization, churches. Your parents may be employed by an employer that supports scholarships of students who are employees there. So that's where you have to actually go out and do your research and start looking for the different scholarship opportunities. I mean, they're in our face. They start as early as high school and middle school. These organizations will send scholarship applications to these schools and encourage students to apply. So a good source to start with is usually your university guidance counselors or college career counselors. They are there to help you through that process. They are there to support you in finding scholarships. They are there to prepare you for that college process. So if you do not have a relationship with your college readiness counselors, or whatever they are called these days, there's so many different names, make sure you have a relationship with them, because they are there to support you and help you do that research as well. I know one thing, you probably even heard me say research like 30 times, but in reality, it is doing your own research and making sure that you're not waiting on your teacher or waiting on your mom or dad or family or friends to tell you where to go to find these things. Use those resources that are available to you. And it's always, it's not too early to reach out to a school. I would say you might not want to in 8th grade, but 10th, 11th grade, you can always reach out to the school and they will be able to provide you with those additional resources as well when it comes to seeking scholarship opportunities. So again, that's one of the things that I always try to encourage, even our students now that are current students. They don't really take a lot of advantage of the scholarship opportunities that are out there. And there's so many different organizations that are willing to give funding to support students, especially minority students. And I won't even say minority students, but those students that, belong to a minority population. There are so many scholarships out there to support you. So just make sure you start your research as soon as possible so that you know what's available and you know the things that you need to do to be able to qualify for those. And then you'll be better prepared.
When you say, Joy, reach out to a school, what does that mean? Who do I contact?
So So I'm going to guarantee you, if there's a school that does not have a financial aid office or an admissions office, then that's a different type of school. But when I say reach out to the schools, it's always best to start with an admissions office. A lot of times the admissions office is that first point of contact that you're going to have with the school. And that's going to be, you're going to get your admissions criteria. You're going to learn about what does it take to even get into that school. And most admissions offices have a close connection with the financial aid office. And that's a relationship that you can build. So you start with admissions. If you have questions about financial aid and or scholarships, reach out to the financial aid and scholarships office, because that's what they're there for. That's what we are there for as financial aid advisors. We make a commitment to, even if you're not a student that's not planning on attending the school, you are still able to reach out to them to obtain information if that's what you're seeking. So I would say definitely start with your admissions and financial aid offices. And if it is a school that you are interested in, the recruiter, university recruiters, there's always recruiters for all schools. Recruiters are able to give you all the information that you need before you even start the admissions process. So keep those three areas in mind: recruitment, admissions, and financial aid, because those are the three areas that you're going to have to definitely make sure that you have communication with as you start your college journey.
That's terrific. And there's something that you said that is sort of, I think, nuanced, and I want to completely highlight it really. And that is, I can, for example, reach out to, if I live in Texas and I'm thinking about going to school in Colorado, or I'm thinking about going to a school in New Mexico, I can just call that financial aid office, whether I end up going there or not, and ask them general questions. Like I can pick up the phone,
absolutely,
and reach out, even if I'm not going there.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
generally speaking,
yeah, if it's general questions, for sure. Now, if you're wanting to get into detail, of course, they're not going to be able to tell you much until they have an application on file, or if it's something about a financial aid related matter that's specific to you. They won't, be able to give you information as far as that unless they have a copy of your FAFSA or they have some details on you. But if you're just calling to ask general questions, hey, what's the priority deadline to complete a FAFSA? Or hey, what's your scholarship deadline? Or what's a good resource that we can available for us to apply for scholarships? They are able to answer those type of generic questions, usually. I would be surprised if there are schools that would completely say, no, I can't talk to you because you're not our student. I don't think that would happen.
I think that is such a important point for people to know about and to really take advantage of. So anyway, that being said, one concern that a lot of families have is related to student loan debt. So my question is, how can students minimize student loan debt?
I would say the best way is to, first thing, of course, is to only borrow what you need, if you need that. If I go back to what my initial answer was, do your research and find the scholarships, because a lot of students end up taking out loans, not necessarily because they have to, they just have not put in the work to do things timely, to do the research on those scholarships, or may not even be in a position where they can apply for scholarships or could obtain scholarships, maybe based on GPA or whatever the case may be. But I would say only borrow what you need and try to find all other type of funding to supplement having to take out a student loan. I won't say student loans are completely bad. There are two types of loans. You'll have your federal direct subsidized loan, your federal direct unsubsidized loan. So if a school ever offers you a loan, you definitely only want to take the subsidized loan, because the unsubsidized loan is the loan that's going to accrue interest. So I always try to advise students that if you have to have a loan, take out the subsidized loan, because that's not going to accrue interest while you're in school, and only take out what you need. Do understand that although it's a loan, it's still a student loan, so it's relatively easy to get. but don't think that because it's easy to get that you should just take what a school is offering you. Because most schools now, they don't force you to take out a loan. We can't force you to take out loans. It's an option. You have the option to. We can't force you to. You have the option to take out the amounts that you feel is appropriate to support you. But again, do not take out more than what you need, because I see so many times, and even I'm just going to admit this to y'all between us. I'm an example of that. When I was an undergraduate student, these loans were thrown in my face. Oh, here you go, because you hear about students, oh, they're getting refund checks back. Everybody's getting a refund check. So of course I wanted a refund check too. And the way I got that refund check is from a big student loan that, at that point in time, I didn't think it was a big deal. Oh, it's just a student loan, whatever. And so now, 21 years later, I'm still paying for that loan, and I did not need it. I had other sources of funds, scholarships, Pell Grants, all of the kind of grants that my school offered me, but I wanted a refund check. And I get it. Sometimes we get in positions where we're off at school. We know we need additional funding because we don't have mom or dad or whomever there to, take us to McDonald's and buy us that number 5 that we want. We want our own money to do that. And that's understood. Right. So that's where we see a lot of students, they take the loans to do that, but then I think they end up taking a little bit too much, and then they regret it in the end. So if you don't have to take them, don't take them. Again, scholarships is the key. If your school is one of those schools who are limited on funding, limited with institutional and state funding, you may end up having to take out a loan to support you a little bit, but only take what you need. Only take what you need.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your for sharing kind of your bit of your story, and that's really, really helpful. And you've touched on this, but I want to just make sure that I'm getting as much at this next point as possible, and that is where, you're saying sort of take out, apply for scholarships, but how do you sort of really optimize the amount of scholarship money that you receive? Like, how do you, if I'm doing research on scholarships, are there any sort of tips or tricks to applying for scholarships to improve both the number of scholarships and the amount per scholarship?
No, I would say don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to only saying, oh, I'm only going to apply for 5 scholarships. Apply for as many as you want. I know applying for scholarships can become very tedious because a lot of them are asking for essays. They're asking for you to get recommendation letters. Some of them, not all of them, but I think a lot of times people get kind of drained. It's kind of like, it makes me think about when I'm applying for jobs, and every time you're applying for a job, they want a resume, a cover letter, this and that and the third, and it gets tedious. But the trick to that is use the same thing over and over. So if they ask you for an essay, if you've written one great, excellent, bomb essay for one scholarship application, you can use the same essay for other scholarship applications. So you're not sitting there rewriting them, unless they have given you a special topic to write about. Then yeah, you may have to tweak your original essay, or you may have to start from scratch. But usually they're just going to ask you for a good writing sample. Those letters of recommendations, when you're obtaining those letters of recommendations that some of the scholarship donors are asking for, try to use the same one. And when I say use the same one, don't try, you have to make some changes, but whoever is recommending and writing those recommendation letters for you, be honest and upfront with them and say, hey, I'm applying for a lot of scholarships. So is it okay that if I duplicate this letter and use the same one for multiple scholarships? You definitely want to make sure that's okay with the person that's doing the recommendations, but try to maximize on the number of scholarships that you're applying for. And again, I know it's a tedious process. I know it could be a lot. Now, don't get it twisted, because some scholarship applications is just as simple as what's your name, what's your GPA, where you live, okay, boom, we good. But some of them ask for you to do a little more work, and those are usually the ones that give you the most money as well. So keep that in mind. You're gonna have to work for the ones that's gonna give you more money, but don't limit yourself on the number of scholarships you apply for, because you can never have too many. One thing about it, when your scholarship gets to the school, whether it be that organization sends the check or whether it be the school awards you that scholarship, they're not going to say, okay, well, you've gotten too much money in scholarships, so we're going to have to take that back and send it back. Schools usually don't do that. Now, for some strange reason, if that's the policy of a school, okay. But most schools are not going to say, oh, you've gotten 15 scholarships and you can't have those. So again, maximize, apply for as many as you can, as many as you feel that you qualify for, and then just wait and let the dollars roll in. That's what I could say about it.
All right, I got you. Well, let's talk about the FAFSA for a minute. And that's kind of that's an important tool that you use. What are some sort of what's your advice to families about completing the FAFSA, or pitfalls that you've seen over the years, or things that you want to that people should keep in mind?
Mhm.
Any thoughts that you might share with us about that?
So that FAFSA is the key to the money. Even I think you mentioned this earlier, Mr. Lemon. Do a FAFSA, regardless of whether you think your parents make too much money to qualify for you to qualify for financial aid. A lot of schools will still require a FAFSA for a scholarship application. Some scholarships still require a student to have a what they call unmet need. And as he mentioned in the presentation earlier, that unmet need is determined by a FAFSA. So you want to complete your FAFSA regardless of whether you feel you're going to get money or not. The most important thing about the FAFSA, which is working eventually in a couple of years, they have what they'll be calling the FAFSA, the simplified FAFSA, which the FAFSA is going to be a lot less complicated to complete. Right now, when you're completing the FAFSA, there's always it's no deadline to complete the FAFSA as long as it's still within the academic year. However, your school of choice will set a priority deadline. As he mentioned, Mr. Lemon mentioned earlier, sticking to those deadlines. So say, for instance, Prairie View has a priority deadline of January the 15th. If you get your FAFSA completed by January 15th, you will be eligible for priority funding. When I say priority funding, a lot of schools have limited funding. Most schools have, I won't say most schools, but a lot of schools have limited funding. It's just not funding that's there to give to every student that attends. That's where meeting priority deadlines come into play. Meeting the priority deadline puts you in the position where if the school has limited fundings, you will get first priority at those fundings. So you want to make sure that whatever school you decide to attend, that you are adhering to those deadlines, completing that FAFSA early. And when I say complete the FAFSA, completing it correctly, because it's not just, going through, filling out demographic information, your name, address, social security number, and hitting submit, and you're done. No, the FAFSA does require a lot of information. Not to intimidate you or anything, but the FAFSA is going to require parent income information. It's going to require student income information. It's going to require a number of things that you want to make sure that you complete in its entirety. Because you know what's going to happen if you do not complete those, complete your FAFSA with all the data elements that they've asked for. That FAFSA is just going to sit. It's going to be sent to the school, but it's going to be sitting in a rejected status. And the school cannot process a rejected FAFSA. So your FAFSA is going to sit. Everybody else around you is going to have money being awarded to you, and your FAFSA application is going to sit. So once you complete that FAFSA, one thing, meet the priority deadline. Two things, make sure you are completing it in its entirety. Do not skip any questions. Do not leave any questions blank. Make sure that you have yourself and your parent's signature on that FAFSA. Because if not, again, that's going to be a rejected FAFSA and it won't get processed. So again, make sure you complete everything. When you hit that submit button, you'll get what they call a student aid report. And that's how you know that you've completed your FAFSA correctly. Once you've submitted the FAFSA, after it's been processed, they'll send you what they call a student aid report, or it's referred to a lot of times as the SAR report. Once you get that, it'll give you all the details. It'll be a summary of what you put on the FAFSA, and it will kind of give you an idea of what you would be eligible for as far as any institutional, state, or federal grants with that school. Also, it'll tell you your EFC, which he mentioned about the EFC, and that EFC plays an important role on determining how much financial aid you'll be receiving. So again, completing the FAFSA is very important. That's the first step to any financial aid process, the first step to receiving financial aid, and it has to be done every year. Every year you want to make sure you're meeting those deadlines. So again, that's the most important thing. So I don't know if there's any seniors on the call right now that's getting ready to start college, fall 2023, but the FAFSA application opened on October 1st. So it's very important that you get that done like now, tomorrow, and get it to the school of your choice so that they can have that application once they start awarding. A lot of schools start awarding as early as December. We at Prairie View, we start awarding in January, especially to our freshmen, because we want you to commit to us. So that FAFSA application is needed before you're able to get an award package from the school. And the earlier you do that, the earlier you'll be able to, if you're juggling, trying to make a decision between 3, 4, 5 schools, you want to go with the school with the best award package. So that means you need to get your FAFSA done early so you can make your decision early, and then you'll, to be better prepared. So.
That's wonderful. And if a family's having difficulty or they have questions about completing their FAFSA, they're just not sure, what can they do?
Good question. So a lot of times, you're again, it takes me back to your college career readiness counselors, your guidance counselors at your high schools. They are there to support with the FAFSA application. A lot of places, I would say with Prairie View, we work with a lot of high schools. We visit a lot of high school districts all throughout the state of Texas. During those visits, we do FAFSA support, where we can't sit there and do your FAFSA for you, but we are able to be a resource that if you have questions, you can come and sit and start that FAFSA process, and we are able to walk you through that process and answer any questions. But again, if you're not in the area where colleges have come to provide that FAFSA support, you can always contact FAFSA. You can always contact the Department of Education with any questions that you may have. But again, it's probably better to work with your high school counselors to walk you through that FAFSA process, because they are there to support. We do a lot of collaboration with guidance counselors at school all throughout Texas. We actually sit and show them or guide them on FAFSA completion. So they are well versed that when students come and need that support or need some assistance, that they are also well versed on completing the FAFSA application.
That is really terrific that that you all do that. Wow, my hat's off to you there. So, by the way, again, to our attendees, if you have questions, I know many of you submitted questions, and I'm asking them now prior to our session. But if you have questions now, please put those in the chat, and I'm checking. So if you have questions, please feel free to do that. Kind of somewhat rapid fire a little bit. Let me ask you this: if a family, it's probably no secret that it's important to save as much money as you can for college. The question is, if I'm a parent and I'm saving money for my elementary school student, my middle school student, or my high school student, should I save them money in my name, or have some type of investment, use some type of investment vehicle in my name, or should I do it in the name of my student?
Well, I think that's totally up to that would be the family's decision. If you're saving and you're saving specifically to support your child in college, a lot of times they set up a college fund and have that college fund set up where, there's stipulations where, you can't touch it, whatever the case may be. So it's up to the family. It's best, it's what works for the family when it comes to the best way to save, because, at the very end, it's going to be to support your student to go to college. So it's just contingent upon the family situation and what best supports them and what best works for them as far as saving.
Okay. What about, my retirement money and my mortgage for my home? How does that impact how much financial aid my family, my son or daughter?
Now, mortgages and things like that is not, that's not reportable on the FAFSA. Now, there will be a question that will ask about your retirement and, if you've gotten if you've cashed out on retirements and things like that, but it does not play a major role especially now that that EFC, and this is just a little secret I'm gonna let y'all in on. It's not, you know, it's down the pipeline. So maybe by the time you all start completing FAFSAs, the EFC is going to be totally changing to what they will call the Student Aid Index. The EFC will be long gone. It's not going to be the same calculation. The Student Aid Index is going to be another calculation that's going to determine financial aid eligibility. And from my understanding, because the Department of Education is still kind of working out some kinks with how that's going to work, from my understanding, retirements will probably not have to be reported on the FAFSA, and that is not going to play a role in your student aid index calculation at that point. And of course, your mortgages, that's not income, because the FAFSA application is more concerned with money coming into households, not what's going out of the household.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you heard it here. We have the inside scoop, so this is good. It pays to attend the secrettowriting.com expanding college opportunity speaker series events, and it's so wonderful that we have this wealth of knowledge here. It's just amazing to me. Let me share something with you. You're at a HBCU. And I was in a conversation with a guidance counselor at this happened to be at a private school. And that guidance counselor said to me something to the effect of, well, we don't really encourage our students to apply to HBCUs because the funding may not be there versus some other school. Now, I know that you're only, there's just over 100 HBCUs. You're only one, but can you speak to that comment?
Sure. So first of all, don't believe the hype. Don't believe that, you know, HBCUs are so totally underfunded and that you won't get funds, and you're going to go there and you're still going to have to pay so much out of pocket. What you have to understand that historically Black colleges are just exactly that, historical as it relates to funding. A lot of especially state HBCUs receive a lot of money from various sources, as well as their number of endowments. That's what HBCUs are big for, because they receive large endowments. I can speak on Prairie View for an example. We have received in the past, I would say past 5 years, since we had our prior president, who's on her way, you know, going out, but she was a very well-known president, Dr. Ruth Simmons, who came from Brown University, and she's served as the president at Prairie View for 5 years, and she's leaving that role middle of next year. However, once she got into that position, the number of the donations from donors, everyone wanted to give Prairie View money. Everyone wanted to give Prairie View money. We got a large donation from Mackenzie Scott, who is the wife of the owner of Amazon, or the ex-wife of the owner of Amazon. She gave $10 million, $50 million, $100 million to several HBCUs in the country. We get big donations from Tom Joyner Foundation, Thurgood Marshall. These names, these historic names that you've probably heard of coming through school, hopefully you've heard of, they donate to these HBCUs. And what do we do with those funds? We have to award them in forms of scholarships to students, because they give us those donations to support our minority students. So although we may not get the money that Texas A&M may have, we may not get the money that even University of Houston, but you got to look at that comparison. It's worth it. I would say attending an HBCU is worth it. And if you are, again, using your research sources, doing your research, the funding is there. The funding is there. So again, as I mentioned earlier about the state institutions, state provides funding. If you're here in Texas, of course, you may be familiar, or may not be familiar. We receive a lot of funds from the state of Texas. You have your Texas grant. You have those Texas funds that are allocated to schools. So Prairie View is not one of those schools, one of those HBCUs specifically, that have those kind of issues. we compare ourselves to A&M all the time. You know, sometimes A&M gets jealous of us because the state gives us a lot more money than they receive because we're an HBCU. So, you know, if you're ever being told that, you know, HBCUs, we don't have any money, that's not true. Again, do your research, and also take a look at, you know, those different endowments that are coming to the schools. Who's given to schools such as Prairie View? Who's given to Texas Southern? Trust and believe there's funding there. And again, it's all about doing your research and just doing your research on your own. Don't let anyone else tell you, or don't let anyone else tell you what another school doesn't do. Do your research on your own. And you have to compare to private schools. The thing about private schools, they function off of endowments only. They don't get a lot of state funds. They don't get state funds at all. Private schools don't get state funds at all. They are really operating on institutional and endowed funds. Because a lot of students that go to private schools, they're not receiving a lot of even federal grants because the income, you know, most of those students, their parents are sending them to school and paying out of pocket. So I do think that, you know, the comment that was made to you, Mr. Lemon, I'm not sure what your response was to that, or the response to the individual that the comment was made to, but that's definitely not an accurate statement in most cases, because again, you know, Black colleges have funds. At the end of the day, they have funds. So again, you want to wait, and if you are juggling between trying to decide between an HBCU or a PWI or a private school or whatever, get those award packages and then compare your award letters to see who has given you the most money, who's giving who costs the most, and what school are you going to have the best award package that will work for you and your family, that will, you know, kind of put you in a position where you're not having to come a lot out of pocket or even at all. So end of the day, HBCUs have money just like everyone else.
Okay, I tell you what, my response wasn't as thorough as yours.
You know, that's where the point where you just have to bring the data back to some people, because sometimes people just make comments just because of what they think culturally or whatever. But, you know, sometimes you got to get the data to pull it out. I'm pretty sure someone has written a great dissertation about it before. It's always the data out there to prove, you know, something a little different, you know.
Okay. You know, you made me think of another question about, I mean, what happens in a situation if, you know, a family receives a award letter, maybe a student is really excited about attending a particular school, but the family feels like the award just isn't enough. What can and at that point, what can a family do?
Kind of what I've been reiterating since early in the call: apply for your scholarships, research your scholarships, and do them early so you won't be in that situation. Second option, always reach out to your school's financial aid office to determine what your other options are. Sometimes, although you may have gotten an award letter in February and may not have been offered as much as you'd like, but schools are always constantly re-awarding, especially when there's schools that award early. We award early to students that have basically just been admitted. But as you get closer and closer to registration, you start to see those students that we've given great award packages to, but they decide not to attend. So we're going to recuperate that money that has been awarded to them and reallocate. And when we reallocate to those students, those are those students that we look at and say, hey, well, this student didn't get a great award package or a full award package, so let's go and re-award them some additional funding. And that's where it comes into communicating with your school, communicating with your financial aid and scholarships office to make sure that they know your situation and they keep you in that pipeline of students to continue to review and support with additional funding.
You really said something powerful there. I don't know if people really got that, but my ears went up because I had a parent reach out to me with this very issue of the student received aid, and then it wasn't, the family felt like that they needed more. They had ultimately had a conversation with the school, and the school communicated to this family that they in this case did recoup some funds, and reallocate it. So it's kind of an ongoing, evolving process, and that's just a really huge point that I want to underscore. And somewhat tied to that, and I know that you've talked a lot about doing your research and looking at scholarships and so on, but just for a minute, we've been talking largely about students entering college, but just any thoughts that you could leave us with in terms of, okay, my son or daughter, for example, has entered college, completed the first year, but then you have second year, you have third year. What advice do you have for those current college students as it relates to aid?
Yeah, I know I harp on scholarships a lot because that's the best way to get that funding that it's going to be guaranteed that you're not going to pay anything back. I harp on that a lot. And I say that to say academics is important. Academics is even important with financial aid. You have to meet academic standards to continue to receive financial aid. The Department of Education has said, look, if this student is not progressing, if this student is not meeting the academic standards of the university, then we can no longer give financial aid. And typically those academic standards is maintaining a 2.0 GPA, making sure you're progressing. And when I say progressing, that you can't just keep taking classes and failing them all or withdrawing from them all or dropping them all. You have to make sure that you're passing those classes that you take, because if you don't, the school is going to say, hey, you're not meeting the financial aid academic standards, and they're going to cut your financial aid off. So academics is important. That's the best advice that I can give. So don't think that you can do the bare minimum and still be funded. It pays the cost. It's a cost to being able to be in college, and that cost is excelling academically so that you can continue to get those funds. A lot of students don't know or don't understand that it is a academic requirement in order to continue to receive aid. So making sure that after your freshman year, you're checking yourself to make sure, like, okay, how am I doing academically? Am I keeping my GPA up to a point where I can get this scholarship again next year and the next year and the next year? So staying on top of your academics is probably one of the most important things. And I won't even say it's not just to get money. Yes, of course, that's the big piece, but excelling academically because you want to be successful. You want to get out of, college and get a great job. A lot of jobs are going to look at your GPA and how well you were academically in school. Also, another thing is those internship opportunities. So, of course, freshman year, you're probably not going to go in and qualify and be able to get an internship. Probably not even your sophomore year. But by the time you are a junior, you are in there. You're in your major. So Prairie View is very popular. One of the best engineering schools in the state of Texas and one of the best nursing schools in the state of Texas, among other majors, architect and agriculture. Those are like big at Prairie View. With that, there are a lot of internship opportunities, and those internships could be paid. A lot of those internships come along with scholarships. So that goes back to what I say about excelling academically in order to get the money that you need to support yourself. So keep that in mind. So as you're progressing through college, keeping your GPA up, staying active in your extracurriculars, and also build good relationships with your professors and the deans of colleges, because those are the ones that recommend those scholarships and recommend those internships. So again, the key is excelling academically so that you can continue to get the funds that you need.
Excellent, excellent. We're just about out of time. I want to give you sort of leave an opportunity for you to share any parting thoughts, tips, advice, words of wisdom. Dr. Joy Thomas, nuggets. My cup runneth over with all this like information and really cutting edge information.
Yeah.
But the floor is yours for any final words.
Finally, again, I don't know the demographic of the students who are attending this session or on the call, but I just think about how I was. I didn't have the opportunity for, to sit in sessions like this and someone sit and speak to me about financial aid. And I know there's been some other sessions that Mr. Lemon holds, throughout the year. I take advantage of these type of opportunities to get this type of education, especially if your goal is to get to college. And maybe not, if you're not even trying to get to a 4-year college, maybe you're deciding to go to a trade, or a community college or a trade school, or whatever you decide to do, take the opportunity that are given in these type of sessions to learn. Not even just to learn because it's something that you need to know, but to learn to teach other people, or to be encourage other people to learn these things, or just helping them through the process. So take advantage of this, because if I've had these type of opportunities when I was coming out of high school, going into college, I think I would have done things a little differently. Not too much, because the path that I've taken has been challenging, but it's got me to the place where I am. And so I do encourage all of you to do the same, to just follow your dreams, follow your heart, and learn as much as you can. Even if you feel like, I know some of you may be like, okay, this is so boring right now, but I'm pretty sure something, I'm hoping that at least one thing that I've said will stick with you. And just, you tell your friends tomorrow, oh, well, the financial aid lady, she said, do you faster. At least remember that piece. So, follow your dreams, take advantage of these type of opportunities, and go out and be the best that you can be. And I thank you all for having me.
Oh my goodness, you have been so wonderful, and I'm giving you that cyber clap. Thank you so much, Dr. Joy Thomas. You've just been phenomenal. I really, on behalf of the entire secrettowriting.com organization, I want to thank you for being with us. And I know that our audience has benefited from your experience, your knowledge. To our audience, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. I trust that you have learned from Dr. Thomas. I certainly have. Please tell other families about thesecrettowriting.com, about our expanding college opportunity speaker series. Check out our website. We have events coming up, and we will continue this effort. Feel free to reach out to us at any time.